Ladies and gentlemen, this is Cynthia the Audio Bell, and today I'm going to be doing a review. This is not a sponsored review. This is just a review that I decided to do on my own on a piece of equipment that I recently have acquired into my audio setup. Actually, my husband Jeremy made a purchase of a MiniDSP SHD audio streamer. For those of you who are not familiar with the company MiniDSP, they are a company based out of Hong Kong. They specialize in products that center themselves around digital signal processing. So they have streaming devices, they have DACs, they have streaming devices that are DACs and preamps like built into one unit. They also have an integrated amp that is kind of like an all-in-one sort of deal. And I'm going to be talking about the one that Jeremy purchased. I'm really liking it. Let me tell you a little bit about what this device does. This basically replaced an old Behringer Super X Pro crossover and a Behringer Feedback Destroyer equalizer, which the reason that we even had the idea to purchase a device to replace those, one being that those Behringers are pretty old, but the other was we were running into some issues with the mute button for the subwoofer on the crossover, and it was being really finicky, and eventually it just got to the point where it was, I guess, stuck. The subwoofer was not working because of that. I'm sure that we could have probably like taken it apart, maybe fixed it or figured out what was wrong with it. But being that the products were old anyway and that we really wanted something better, we were really leaning towards using something with DRAC, we went ahead and took the leap and got the MiniDSP SHD. MiniDSP has a few different products. A lot of them are really similar in name. They're just like different model names for different use cases. So I had to really kind of dig in and figure out what the differences were between all of these products before doing this video, because I want to make sure that you guys know what the differences are in case one of these other products actually appeals to you more. The SHD, what it does is it is a DSP, a preamp, a DAC, if you're needing a DAC, of course. It is a streaming device. It comes room ready, which basically from what I've read on their website, Rune Ready just means that it's certified by Rune to work with their equipment. So you still have to have an account that you pay for with Rune and the application installed on your PC. It does come pre-installed with Volumio. Volumio is an application that is open source that Jeremy and I have actually been using for a little bit now so that we could stream audio. We were using a topping DAC and we were streaming audio with Volumio being our playback system. Basically, you could take a streaming application like Tidal or Rune, or I don't know if Qobuz does this or integrates with Volumio, but you take a streaming application and connect it to Volumio, and then Volumio kind of acts as your centralized playback station. And so they have Volumio already ready to go on this MiniDSP installed. So all you have to do is have like an account with Tidal or Rune. You've got yourself a streaming setup. I've been using Tidal. I actually have not gotten into the Rune space yet, though I am going to give it a try. So far, I like the quality of Tidal. As far as streaming quality goes, the best you're going to be able to get is DSD. I've been doing a lot of research and a lot of reading on different things. I had to for this video because there's just some technical things that I wasn't super familiar with, like sample rates and upsampling or downsampling, how that fits into the realm of analog versus digital, DSD versus PCM, all of that stuff. So I've done a lot of reading and watching Ask Paul videos for Paul McGowan so that I can learn a little bit more about it now that I'm getting more into the streaming scene. What I've learned about this device is that it doesn't seem to support DSD. So if that's something inherently that you're going to want, just know that at least from what I've read in forums, it's not really specific on their website or their manual, though I think that it has to do with their sample rate. It will convert it to PCM. And again, that's what I heard. If you've heard something different or read something different, definitely let me know in the comments. From the specs on their product brief, its internal sample rate is 96 kilohertz. It could support above that as far as what's coming into it, but anything that goes into it, from what I understand, is going to be downsampled to 96, which is still above CD quality. By the way, if you see me looking down at my system, it's because I keep looking at the MiniDSP. So sorry about that if my eyes have shifted off of you guys. So one of the reasons I wanted to do a review of the MiniDSP SHD is because specifically this model does not seem to have too many reviews out there. I saw one YouTube review, one really good review in writing online, and that was Audio Science Review. He has a lot of cool measurements that he does. If you guys have seen his website and how he writes his reviews, he kind of gets into the nerdy aspects. His review of the product is pretty good. He had an original review and then he updated it because he had some feedback for the company that they ended up taking and implementing and fixing. So initially they had some jitter that was coming up in his measurements, and they ended up taking his feedback from his measurements and actually bringing that jitter down, and so it's not an audible range. I don't know if it was an audible range before. My only problem with the MiniDSP, well, I have a Pass X2 preamp. Now, given that that's about a 30-year-old preamp, but I had it refurbished recently and it sounds brand new. And I didn't really want to give up the fact that I want to use this Pass preamp. And I was like, well, how's that going to hook up to the MiniDSP? There's going to be a few challenges if you have a preamp that you really like, because basically it does not have a home theater bypass. So you cannot bypass the preamplification portion of the device. I tried connecting them together. So I had basically source components, I had my pass, and then the MiniDSP, and then my amplifiers. It didn't sound too much different at first, but then when I really got to listening to it, it sounded kind of like there was this, I want to say like this filter between you and the music. And so I was like, well, I don't know if when you connect two preamps together, what exactly does that do on a technical level? It's going to be processing things twice, but what is that going to do? So I did some more reading online, and people are saying basically if you use two preamps, you may boost the signal a little bit more, but ultimately it can work if you're balancing out volume, which I already knew that, but the problem is that you could increase your noise floor and maybe add some distortion. So it's really going to depend on the scenario. And in this case, it was all right. I also thought about maybe putting the MiniDSP behind the pass. So it goes source components, MiniDSP, pass, amplifiers, because I really like my pass, obviously. And probably if you have a really nice preamp or like a tube preamp, you're not going to want to sacrifice that, right? But then the thought came to me that, well, if I put the MiniDSP behind the pass instead of in front of it, the equalization capabilities are not going to apply to the pass, really. I mean, you still got that extra layer there. If you're going to go for one of their products, they do have a MiniDSP SHD Studio, and it's almost identical to the SHD as far as capability. It has the same DSP chip. It has the same streaming capabilities. It supports DRAC. In fact, both the SHD Studio and the regular SHD, which I have, come with DRAC. If you guys haven't heard of DRAC before, DRAC is a room correction company that licenses out to different components, manufacturers, or you could purchase a license from them for your PC. Allows you to take one of their microphones, they require you have a specific microphone, and go take measurements of your room. So when I first did this, I had the microphone just right here because the sweet spot of my audio system is literally right in the middle of this love seat, which is kind of weird because when I move left and right of the center just a little bit, it kind of moves that center image, and so it's really specific, but my room is not great. You see, I have this fireplace wall, and I don't have a wall similar to that on this side. It's just kind of open to where the front door is. So this wall has caused me a lot of problems with getting a good soundstage and imaging. And so my hope was that the room correction in DRAC could help me, because this wall makes everything unbalanced. So, and plus I'm not even sure being that there's a fireplace here, what might be potentially escaping as far as sound through the fireplace as well. I had the microphone set up right in the middle, and it's a really easy application. You plug in your laptop or whatever PC via USB to the MiniDSP and pull up the application and load up DRAC from the MiniDSP application. And from there, it takes you through step by step how to do the measurements and what you need to do. So it will take you through where you need to position your microphone for whatever type of listening room or listening space that you have. So it has 3 different options you can go through. And one is like, I forget if it's chair or what it is. It's like a single listening space. And then if you have the need for a wider listening space, maybe you have 2 or more people that are going to be listening, but you still want to be able to dial in on that center image without having to sit right in the middle. Then they have a middle tier for love seat, which is kind of what I've got here. And then they have a wider tier for sofa. So you get to pick which tier that you want as far as the narrow versus wide listening area. And then from there, it will direct you on where to place the microphone. And it's really easy. You just go click on the spot that they want you to measure. If they have a picture of a couch, and they'll have like dots for each spot they want you to go measure. So the first time I did this, I did just this focus of the middle. And it was the best, after I applied the DRAC settings, it was the best my system has ever sounded in this room with these 3.7 I's. Because these 3.7 I's, for whatever reason, and this wall, they don't like each other. The 1.7 I's were all right. I do intend to bring those 1.7 I's back into this room and try them again. Basically, the device has 4 different presets. So if you want to change between a wide versus a narrow kind of listening sweet spot, then you can just change presets. So if you've measured just for the middle, which this is what I did, so this is the example I'm giving. But when you have friends that come over and you want to be able to kind of sprawl out on a couch or something of that sort, then you can take measurements for that particular type of room correction and then put that on, say, preset 2. And then you can live switch between preset 1 and preset 2 for whatever you want to listen to. And then you can even compare live by turning DRAC off while you're listening and then turning it back on to see how much of a difference it's really making in your listening space. When I went and did the middle, it sounded phenomenal. But I wanted a wide listening space. We'd like to have some of our friends listen, and we just haven't been able to get this perfect enough to where if you shift to the left, well, all of a sudden your voice sounds like it's over here. If you shift to the right, well, your voice is over here and it's never in the center unless you're right in the middle. So basically what this room correction did for the wider, the love seat room correction, is it has you place the microphone where the left person will be, where the right person will be, in front of them directly, and then above them. And it has you take, I think it was like 16 different measurements, putting the mic in 16 different spots to where you're measuring out this invisible rectangle around your listening space. And if you've got maybe too much boominess over here and not enough over here, what it's going to do is it will intelligently go and correct those things if your room isn't perfect like mine. And it'll do that to the best of its ability. I mean, obviously, you know, the fact remains I've still got this going on here, but it will sound a ton better. And with this was the best I've ever heard it. But when I started listening and comparing, because the streaming side of things to the analog side of things, that's where I had some interesting adventures. I had tried to do an A/B, where at first I went and tested. This is all of the testing that I ended up doing, and it all ended up being for naught, and I'll tell you why. So I ended up connecting the MiniDSP to the pass, to the analog components, and it sounded kind of weird as far as that filter kind of extra layer sound, and so I ended up connecting it directly to the phono preamp. it's still weird. The pass sounded fine, and so I started like taking both of them and connecting one channel to one channel to the other. So there were some things that I learned that, for one, the high output versus low output on my phono preamp, the MiniDSP did not like the high output. That was just too much for it. It started distorting like crazy. But the low output, it was fine. And from what I learned, that was on me for not going and seeing what that required first. The pass actually is rated for low output, but you have to turn it up all the way to hear it. So with high output, I can turn the dial up halfway for the volume and not have an issue. So I had the pass initially hooked up to the high output and was testing with that, which is why I was getting some weird results. So when I corrected that, MiniDSP sounded great. As far as how it competes with the pass, way more clarity in the sound of voices and instruments, just everything. Whereas the pass is a little muddier. It does have more oomph to it on the bottom end. The two, given their pros and cons of those things alone, they really were comparable. I would say that the MiniDSP is just right up there competing with the pass. I could definitely replace it. I don't really want to, because I like the pass and the name brand pass, but it's up there and it's competing neck to neck with the pass. When I had one in one channel and one in the other, and I got them about to the same volume, the pass sounded like it had some more bassiness to it, and the MiniDSP sounded more clear. And I was like, well, I wonder if I switch channels, just make sure it's not the song here. And so I swapped channels. It followed the pass. Pass was still bassy, and the MiniDSP wasn't as bassy. But then I swapped connections on the phono preamp. The MiniDSP became bassier. That's why I say I don't know how much to put into this testing. I'm gonna have to redo all of that testing and probably make another video for you guys to talk about it. What I was able to end up doing was, because you can connect a laptop up to the MiniDSP, you can load up REW, which is a free software, to take a look at the measurements of what's coming through sound-wise. And so I started playing a record with white noise and found that one of the channels actually had a 3 decibel gain over the other channel. I know that tubes add about 3 decibels from what I've heard, and I'm wondering if that might be just a tube going out on my phono preamp. So that's something I'm gonna have to take a look at. I've actually got another phono preamp that I could check out. So all that aside, the functionality of the equalization room correction is pretty good. I really like using D-Rack. If you don't want analog inputs or outputs, this may not be for you. If you want to integrate a different preamp, this may not be for you. The Studio version pretty much does the same thing, except it's all digital. It does not have any analog inputs or outputs, does not have a DAC. So you would have to have a separate DAC, which is fine if that's more so what you're looking for. And then you can have a separate preamp, because the Studio in itself is not a preamp. There is one more model of their streaming devices, and that is called the SHD Power. And that is an integrated amplifier. This does not have analog inputs, however. So overall, really easy to integrate. As far as the D-Rack capabilities, that is really helpful. And the reason why that is so beneficial is because D-Rack has their own software all ready to go, where it does everything behind the scenes for you. All you have to do is take measurements and then let it do its thing. Whereas before, with my other equalizer, I was having to take measurements, put them into REW, and manually go load presets and different things. This kind of takes into account everything dynamically, and there's not a lot of fuss about having to finagle with different technological things if that's not what you're into. So this would be really easy for somebody who may not be super technical. This basically is like having somebody come to your house and set it up for you. All you have to do is place the microphone and push a few buttons. Some other cool things that I got to play with today, the fact that with MiniDSP, there's also internet radio that they have integrated to where you can pull up local radio stations, and that's probably the best I've ever heard radio. As far as the price point, the SHD is about $1,300. It will come with a microphone. However, if you want to upgrade to a better microphone, that does cost extra, and it makes the price point a little bit over $1,400. The tripod for the microphone is $15, so if you need a tripod, then you can also add that in for $15 extra. The studio version of the SHD is about $400 less than the regular SHD. So again, there's pros and cons to both. It just depends on what you need in your system and additional capabilities. SHD has more bells and whistles and things that it's capable of. Studio might be that just right scenario where you're needing that porridge not to be too hot or too cold, but something in the middle. All right, guys. So if you like these videos, feel free to subscribe, like, comment. Since I might be doing another video or two about the MiniDSP, let me know if there's anything else that you want to see specifically, and I could try to incorporate it in another video. All right, this is Cynthia the Audio Bell signing out. Thank you for watching.